Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in our Intro to Python series. In this video we're going to be talking about sorting. So the first method I want to discuss is the .sort method, which is a built-in method for a list object, and it sorts the elements of a given list in a specific ascending or descending order. The .sort method will sort the existing list in place and modify the list itself, and that's why I've written that the .sort and then arrow none, because it doesn't return any kind of value. So the syntax for this is that you'll take your list object that you have here, called the .sort method on it, and it takes two optional parameters. You don't have to provide it with anything, but if you do, you can provide a key and you can provide a reverse field. So the reverse parameter is if it's true, the list is sorted in reverse, and by default this is set to false. And the key parameter is a function that is used for the sort comparison, and we'll discuss this a little bit later and see how it works. By default, the key is set to none. So here I have a random list of numbers, and we're going to just play around with it using the .sort method. So let's comment out these lines. And so what I'm doing here is I have numList, and I'm calling .sort without any parameters. And then we're going to print this out, and then we're going to use the .sort method again on the same list, but this time reverse it. So let's save and run. And so we see here, I printed out sorted numList, and it sorts the list and returns the list. Or, my bad, it doesn't return anything, but it changes the actual list. Notice how we're printing numList itself. We didn't save the .sort return value or anything. We simply changed the order of the items in the list itself. And then last, we called .sort with the reverse field set to true, and then printed out our list, and we have the list in reverse order. So let's comment these lines again, and then we'll go on to a list of strings. So here I just have a list of strings, and they're all just names, and we have some more .sort methods here, so I'll comment these out, talk about them, and then we'll run it. So these first two lines here are just sorting the strings by default. Right? We're not providing reverse, we're not providing any key argument. And so by default, this will just set it to alphabetical order. The next two lines, right? So these two lines right here, whoops. These two lines here, we have the reverse set to true, and then we sort it, and then we just print it out. So this will be reverse alphabetical order. This last one, here, we are finally using our key. So again, the key maps to a specific function. Remember that in Python we have a function called len, and it returns the length of some kind of object. So for strings, this is how many characters are in that string. So this will sort the names from shortest to longest. And then this bottom one here, we're taking advantage of Lambda functions, which are functions that don't have a name or anything, because we won't need them probably ever again, right? They're nameless functions. So what this is doing is that for each item, right, for each item in our names list, right, it will take that item, and we want our comparison, right, we want it to be sorted by first the length of the name, and then we want it to be by alphabetical order. We'll see that if we just do it by the length, right, if we only specify the length for our key, this doesn't necessarily mean that it will be in alphabetical order as well as by sorted by length. So let's just save and run, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so let's just make this full screen for right now so we can see the whole output. So the first line contains all the sorted names, right? So they're in alphabetical order. The second line contains the reverse sorted names, so they're in reverse alphabetical order. Next, these next two lines, the third line and the fourth line, are the most interesting, right? So we first said that we wanted to just do it by the length. And so the reason why Sam comes before Ollie is just because Sam came before Ollie in our previous version of that list. Notice how Mike comes before Finn, even though that's not correct alphabetically, right? So this is only sorting by the length of each string in our list. The fourth one here, we said that we want to sort by the length of the list, and then if those are tied, we also want to sort by alphabetically. So this time when we sort, we have Ollie first, then Sam. Despite them both having the length of 3, right? Ollie comes first because his name starts with A. Then we have Finn and Mike, who both have 4 letters in their name, but since Finn's name comes first alphabetically, his will be next in our list, and so on. Alright, so that's the dot sort method, and this only works on lists. If we have a tuple, a set, or a dictionary, they don't have dot sort methods. So the dot sort method is only used on lists, and it will sort that list in place. Next, we have the sorted method, and the sorted function returns a sorted list from the items of an iterable, and it does not change the object in place. So the sorted method always returns a sorted list. So the syntax for the sorted function is that it takes an iterable as its first parameter, and then it takes the key and reverse. So this is very, very similar to the dot sort method. However, now we have one required parameter, which is the iterable. So this is any object that is an iterable, so a string, a tuple, a list, a set, a dictionary, something like that. And then the key and reverse fields work the exact same way. So, actually, let me just comment out these lines so they don't get printed again. And then let's work with the sorted method. So we're using the same nums list, the num list that we had before, right? Everything has been commented out that's been sorted, so the num list in the beginning is the same one that we have defined here, right? So we're calling the sorted method on it, and then we're just going to print the sorted num list, and we're going to print the original num list. Notice that we're saving the output of the sorted function to a variable. This is because it does return something. This returns a sorted list. So we're going to save and run. And so you'll see here that if we print out the sorted list, we get our sorted list, right, on the first line, but the actual list itself doesn't change. It remains unsorted, right? So this is just useful if you have a set of data and you don't want to alter it in any way, especially if it's a list, you could use the sorted method. So let's comment out those lines so they don't interfere with our next examples. Next we have a tuple, and so we're going to use this tuple, and we're going to use the sorted method. So again, keep in mind that the tuple set or any other thing that's not a list doesn't contain a dot sort method. So if I were to do my tuple dot sort, right? If I were to run this, which I will, it won't work. So I'll save and run, and I'll say set object has no attribute sort. And that's because I made it as a set and not a tuple. Whoops. Let's run that again. So save and run. And there we go. Tuple object has no attribute sort. I guess it works. I guess it's good to show you that the set one doesn't have it either, right? So this won't work. So how can we sort a tuple? Again, we just use our sorted function. And first, I had this as a set example in the beginning, so let me go and change that. Alright, so let's save and run. So we have the my tuple, right? And this is our original tuple that we print out. And note that the sorted my tuple return is a list now. And I print the type or the return type of the sorted method or the sorted function, right? And it always returns a list. It does not return the iterable that we passed in or of that type. So I'm going to comment these lines out. And next, we're going to be looking at dictionary. So I just have a cities dictionary that contains 4 cities in the United States, and it just has their population in the millions as the value. So I have 2 functions here that we're going to be passing into the key parameter of the sorted function. And one's by key and one is by value. So if you have an item in a dictionary, right? If you have a list of all the items or something like that, the first object of the item will be the key, so that's why we return the 0th index, and the first item, or not the first, but at the 1 index of that item will be the value. So let's comment out these lines. And so by default, if you just pass in a dictionary, if we just print sorted, then our dictionary, it will just return a sorted list of all the keys of our dictionary. It won't contain any of the values. And so that might or might not be useful to someone. Generally, when you want to sort or use a dictionary and have the items be sorted, you call the .items method on the dictionary. And what the .items method does is it returns a list of tuples where each tuple, or the first element of each tuple, is a key in the dictionary, and the second item in each tuple is the value for that associated key. So what we're going to do here is we're going to print, or we're going to get a sorted list of all the items, and we want to sort by key, right? So since each key is a string in this case, this will be in alphabetical order. And so the first time we're doing key and we're specifying our by key function, and then the next one we are using a lambda function. And it's the same thing. I'm just trying to illustrate that you can replace creating a discrete function by using lambda. And sometimes this is just nicer. Again, we might not use this by key or by value function ever again. So it's nice to just have it kind of compact and into this one little statement in one line and not take up more room. And then these last 2 print statements, what they're doing is we're now going to be using the by value function for our key parameter, and we're also going to be checking reverse. So that means we want to sort by the population size. So by default it is always ascending, but since we have the reverse set to true, it's going to be descending. So let me save and run. So let's full screen this so we can see the whole screen. So we see that our first print statement just printed out sorted, and it just passed in the dictionary as our iterable. So again, it just sorts the keys. Not too useful generally. Next, we have the sorted keys, right? We sort the key, each item by its key value, and then we're also giving the value for each key, right? So this has the same thing as the one above, but it just includes the values. And remember, we used the by key function that we defined before for this second print statement. This third print statement contains the same exact items in the list above it. However, we used a lambda function. And here we used our by value function, and we said that the reverse is set to true. So notice how it is sorted in descending order by the population. So it goes 8.4, which is greater than 3.8, which is greater than 2.7, which is greater than 2.1. And here we used the key parameter was set to our by value function. And the last method here, or the last dictionary here, we used our lambda function, which does the exact same thing. So next I'm just going to comment this out so it doesn't interfere with our next and last example. And this is where the sorted method can be really powerful. And we can use sorted to even sort user-defined objects. So here I have a car class, right? We defined a car class. It takes in two parameters, the name of the car and the year. And then I have a repr function, which is a special method. And this is just how the object will be visualized or printed out to the screen. So this is how we'll see it. So I created 3 car objects, and they're just called car1, car2, car3, and one's a Camry, one's a Prius, and one's a Mustang with various years. And now we have a tuple called garage, and it just contains these 3 cars. So I'll uncomment these lines and talk about them. So the first one is cars sorted by name, right? So we're going to be sorting our garage, and we want to sort by the name. Since we're using our own object that we've defined, right? We've defined this car class. Each item is a car, right? And each car has a dot name, so it has a name, and it has a year. And since we want to sort it by name, our lambda function will take in the car, and it will return car.name. And so we'll then print this car sorted by name list that it returns. Next, we want to return the newest car, right? We want to return the newest car in, I guess, descending order. So the first car on our list should be the newest one, right? So we're going to pass in our garage again, and this time we're going to sort by car.year. And normally if it's an integer like we have here, it'll sort in ascending order. But since we want it by newest, we're going to set reverse to true. We're going to then print out our newest cars list, and then last we'll just print out the garage and show how the garage never changed. So let's save and run. So if we look here, cars sorted by name, we get a list, and we have our Camry first, the Mustang second, and the Prius last. If we sort by newest, so this is by the year that the car was released, we have Mustang first, Camry second, and then Prius last. And if we just print the garage tuple, the original one that we made, it just prints car 1, car 2, and car 3 in that order. So hopefully that cleared up any confusion on the dot sort method for lists and the sorted function that's built into Python. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. We'll get to them to the best of our ability. Again, all this code will be uploaded to our GitHub, so you can go ahead and check it out and play around with it yourselves. Alright, thanks everyone. Thanks for watching.